Chapter 1886. Gu Xingyin looked at the group of people in front of him calmly, and the Harris's staff appeared in his right hand in an instant. They didn't come with good intentions. She saw it clearly. The group of people in front of her had hidden their IDs, and they had sealed off her escape route. Don't Scratch Your Feet knew what was going on. Brother, it seems like Dark Fragrance is in trouble. I'll go help her. Her figure was pulled back by Qili. He whispered, let's wait and see. Gu Xingyin looked at the group of people in front of her and said calmly, what are you doing? A swordsman standing in front of her sneered. Hidden Fragrance Sleeves, you've committed too many sins on a daily basis. The few of us were entrusted by others to teach you a good lesson. Gu Xingyin looked around. Her expression didn't change, as if she didn't care about these people at all. Oh, how are you going to teach me a lesson? When the person heard this, he was terrified. He smiled and said, don't worry. Seeing that you're a pretty girl, we won't go too far. We'll just make you lose a few levels and hand over the staff of Harris. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh. It really wasn't too much. Dragon Roar had been open for almost 2 years. She had joined when the server was just open. Dark Fragrance's account was already over level 100, and she was at the top of the level leaderboard. At her level, losing a level might take a month to get it back. How could they say that? Losing a level could only happen in PvP. In other words, this group of swordsmen was going to PK her, a mage? That was shameless. What was even funnier was that they wanted the staff of Harris. In the 2 years since Dragon Roar had been open, no more than 20 divine artifacts had appeared. Her staff of Harris, in terms of stats, could be ranked in the top 10 of the entire server. It was the #1 divine artifact for mages. In terms of value, Harris's staff was worth millions of crystal coins. And it was priceless. In order to prevent the artifact from being forcefully dropped, the fantasy developers had already come up with countermeasures. Unless the player took the initiative to give it away, otherwise, even if the player's account was turned into a blank account, the artifact would not be taken away. Even when Hidden Fragrance was short on money, she had never thought of selling Harris's staff, and it was easy to see how much she loved this artifact. And now, these people were asking her to hand over Harris's staff so easily? This was the biggest joke in the world. Hearing her undisguised mocking laughter, the players' faces darkened. Hidden Fragrance, if you cooperate obediently, we won't go too far. We'll just PK you twice. Hand over Harris's staff and this matter will be over. If you don't know your place, Gu Xingyin asked, what if I don't know what's good for me? That person sneered. If you don't know what's good for you, we'll start PK like this. Hidden Fragrance Sleeves, just wait to be turned white. Gu Xingyin chuckled softly. She raised her head and laughed softly. You want to PK me? The dozen or so players on the opposite side thought, could it be that this woman was scared silly? How could she still laugh at this time? Then, they heard a message appear on the virtual panel in front of each of them. Player, Hidden Fragrance Sleeves, has started a forced PK against you. 4 chapters. The female lead was starting to cheat people. Please vote, vote, vote. Chapter 1887. The players looked at Gu Xingyin as if they had seen a ghost. In their hearts, they were all thinking, could it be that this Dark Fragrance Sleeves had really been scared silly? A magician actually wanted to PK a group of attack-type players? In order to protect the rights of the players, only one player was allowed to PK the same player every day. However, there was no limit to how many players you wanted to PK. The original plan of this group of people was that if Dark Fragrance did not agree to their request, they would forcefully PK her. After a dozen rounds of PK, not only would Dark Fragrance's level drop, she would also lose most of her equipment. However, none of them expected that before they even made a move, Dark Fragrance would actually deliver herself to their doorstep. Gu Xingyin admired their stunned expressions and slowly said, there's nothing I can do about it. You guys are a group of big men, talking and doing things so slowly. It's really annoying, so I might as well go first. She sighed. It really makes people feel bored just looking at it. The leader of the opposing group sneered. Very good, Dark Star Fragrance, I didn't expect you to be so stubborn. Originally, I thought that if you knew what's good for you, we wouldn't go too far. However, it seems like you don't know how to write the words "know your place." Gu Xingyin coldly raised her eyebrows. Against a group of trash, is there a need to be so serious? You. The man sneered and opened the virtual panel in front of him. Gu Xingyin received a message. Player Anonymous has forcefully PK you. She curled her lips into a satisfied smile. Then she turned to the others. I think your team leader still has some guts. He knows to get back at me after being scolded. What about you guys? The faces of the group of male players became quite ugly. They were openly provoked by a woman. How could they let this go? They could not tolerate this. One after another, Gu Xingyin's optical computer received several messages. Very good, 13 people, 26 rounds of park, not far away, don't scratch his feet, who was looking over, widened his eyes. Is Dark Star Abundant Sleeves crazy? She's a mage. Why would she rush to deliver her head to others? That was 26 PKs. If Dark Fragrance Sleeves lost, she would lose 26 levels. If she really dropped that much, then she really wouldn't be able to stay in the first echelon of Sound of Dragon Roar. Qili stared at the calm figure of the white-clothed mage. A voice in his heart told him that she was not as simple as she looked. He said indifferently, "Don't jump to conclusions yet. Let's keep watching." Don't Scratch Her Feet looked at her brother in confusion. She didn't understand. Wasn't the result of this competition already decided? What else was there to see? Immediately, she knew what was there to see. Gu Xingyin extended her staff and pointed at the man in the lead. Then let's start with you. With a wave of her staff, she charged towards the male player. The male player was stunned, clearly not expecting Gu Xingyin's reaction. As a mage, shouldn't she just stand behind a warrior and wave her staff to heal him? Why did she rush up in such a hurry? However, he wasn't a noob. He only stared blankly for a moment before reacting. He sneered, "Since you're courting death, I'll fulfill your wish." Chapter 1888. As a swordsman, the male player's weapon was a high-level purple weapon. He looked at Gu Xingyin, who was rushing towards him. He moved the long sword in his hand, and threw out a series of sword skills unique to swordsmen. The male player was full of confidence. At such a close distance, the other party was a mage with low agility. It was impossible for her to dodge. But the reality was, where was she? The male player only felt the figure in front of him flash, and then the mage in front of him disappeared. Suddenly, the hairs on his body stood up, and he subconsciously looked above his head. The last thing he thought of was the staff that was coming down on his head. Everyone stared blankly as a bright red critical hit floated above the male player's head. Then a -11,228 number appeared above his head. There was a deathly silence. The big guy rubbed his eyes hard and almost screamed, "Brother, brother! I didn't see wrong, right? It's fine if a mage doesn't heal, but she used her staff as a weapon and killed a swordsman with full health in one move." Was this still the phantasm she played? Qili said calmly, "You didn't see wrong." To be honest, he was also shocked. Dark Fragrance's move just now looked very simple, but Qili could clearly see that it was not simple at all to execute. First of all, she had to have extremely high agility to be so fast that a swordsman couldn't see her figure clearly. Qili estimated that Dark Fragrance's dexterity wasn't much lower than an assassin like himself. In addition to agility, it was also closely related to her own reflexes. Holographic online games. What was holographic? In the development of online games, the height that a player could reach had a lot to do with their own qualities. Otherwise, no matter how high your abilities were, it would be like guarding a treasure trove and not being able to use them. It would be useless. Just Dark Fragrance's leap just now had extremely high requirements for her body's reaction speed and flexibility. Qili even suspected that Dark Fragrance Flowing Sleeves was a martial artist in real life. Why would such a person choose to be a mage? Qili couldn't understand this point. He continued to look at Dark Fragrance. As for the high damage she dealt just now, one of the reasons was that Dark Fragrance's attack was powerful enough, and the other was that her burst damage was high. Phantasm had a very user-friendly setting. For example, during PK, the closer the attack was to the opponent's vital point, the more likely it was to deal critical damage. and the critical damage would increase infinitely. For example, Hidden Fragrance's attack just now had hit the male player's head. This was one of the most vital parts of the human body, so the male player was instantly KO'd. As for whether this attack was due to luck or Dark Star Flowing Sleeves calculations, he still needed to observe. Gu Xingyin glanced at the silent crowd opposite him and chuckled softly. He picked up the item that the male player had dropped with a flash of golden light. Night Luminescent Pearl? Gu Xingyin was a little disgusted. It wasn't too valuable, but it was better than nothing. She kept it in her backpack. "Thank you for the gift," she said lazily. The male player's body flashed with white light, and he stood up again. He didn't look too good. One was because he had lost to a healer because of carelessness. That's right, he didn't feel that he was inferior at all. He felt that he had been careless and thought that Dark Fragrance had gotten lucky. Chapter 1889. The second reason was because of the death just now. That was because Fantasy Fiend was a game with a high degree of realism. The degree of realism was quite high, including his own death. Although it could reduce all kinds of feelings by 50%, the male player really felt the feeling of death just now. He could feel that his head was hit by something heavy, and then all the blood in his body seemed to have gathered at the top of his head. A huge sense of dizziness and loss of strength came along with it. After that, he didn't know anything. This kind of feeling, if it was anyone else who experienced it, would not feel very good. At this moment, he looked at Gu Xingyin as if he couldn't wait to kill her. In fact, Gu Xingyin didn't plan to let him go. It wasn't just him. She didn't plan to let any of the 13 men go. Ever since the end of the last world, she had been holding back a mouthful of anger in her heart that she couldn't vent. These people just happened to come to her door for her to vent her anger. How could she let down their good intentions? She slowly sighed and said, as expected of Harris's staff, "It feels good to beat people up with it." Not far away, the burly man who was scratching his feet laughed out loud. She now understood that Dark Fragrance Flowing Sleeves was purposely angering that group of people. Although she didn't know what she was relying on, based on her previous performance, she shouldn't be at a disadvantage. Not scratching his feet thought about it, and quietly pressed the record button on the bottom right corner of his personal virtual panel. As soon as Gu Xingyin finished speaking, he was not surprised to see the man raising his sword and rushing towards him again. Anyway, the two of them each had a chance to PK, and once it started, they couldn't give up. If they didn't PK, they would automatically admit defeat. At that time, the result would be the same as a PK failure. The other party could even directly choose a piece of equipment from you. This was much worse than a random drop. Everyone had countless items in their backpacks. If it was random, they might drop something worthless like the Night Luminescent Pearl just now. However, the opponent's choice wasn't the same. No one was an idiot. Even if they didn't know anything, they could just point at the other party's equipment and take it. Anyway, if it was worn by the player, it wouldn't be bad. Gu Xingyin was waiting for the other party to make a move. She waved the staff in her hand and attacked the male player with a beautiful posture. The two sides were actually entangled in a fight. F***CK. One of the players who were attacking Gu Xingyin suddenly shouted. He stared dumbfoundedly at Gu Xingyin, who was nimble and agile in midair, suppressing her opponent with a single staff, and shouted, "What kind of skill is this? Do mages have such skills?" He wanted to spit out a mouthful of blood. A mage's attack was even sharper than a swordsman's. How could they continue playing? Another person shook his head. How is that possible? Mages are support types. It's impossible for them to have so many attack skills, but the two of them looked at each other and saw the deep shock in each other's eyes. If this wasn't a sorcerer's skill, then how did Dark Fragrance do it? A terrifying thought appeared in everyone's mind. While the two of them were chatting, Gu Xingyin had already discovered the male player's weakness. She chuckled and waved the staff in her hand. Chapter 1890. Hack Smash Swing Sweep. Everyone could clearly see that a string of red damage continuously appeared on the male player's body. Occasionally, a critical hit would appear. Many people had already turned their heads away. It was really too tragic. By the time Gu Xingyin's figure descended from the sky and ruthlessly smashed the male player onto the ground with her staff, the male player was already dead. Ignoring the corpse on the ground, Gu Xingyin happily picked up the dropped item on the ground. Purple quality necklace attribute. +5 agility, +3 accuracy. Gu Xingyin's eyes lit up. This was not bad. She was in a good mood and immediately put it on. Then she turned her head and looked at the ground. Why are you pretending to be dead? I can't PK with you today, she said in disdain. After such a long time, this player should have been able to revive long ago. Hearing her words, the male player's body flashed with white light, and he crawled up from the ground. You. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a complicated expression. He deeply felt that his heart had been hurt. With this kind of skill, she actually went to be a healer. Was there something wrong with this woman? If you have the ability to be so strong, why don't you have the ability to be a swordsman? If you don't want to be a swordsman, you can be an archer or an assassin. Why are you trying to cheat my feelings? Although he didn't say anything, his expression said everything. Gu Xingyin yawned and moved the staff in her hand. A golden light fell, giving herself a 10-minute agility buff and 2 points of stamina. She lazily said, "So tired. Luckily, I'm a mage." Everyone. Damn shameless. Are you tired? We saw how easily you crushed your opponent. Then, they all saw the cold mage turn around and look at them. She smiled sinisterly and said, "Who's next?" Everyone. Mom, I'm scared. After seeing the PK between Dark Fragrance and the male player, the rest of the people could already see their own fate. They were probably going to die. They said they were afraid, but they had to do it. Otherwise, with Hidden Fragrance Full Sleeve's personality and the enmity between them, if they let Hidden Fragrance Full Sleeve speak, they would definitely be skinned alive. An archer walked up, unafraid of death. Come, Hidden Fragrance Sleeves. You're good at close combat, but how about ranged attacks? How about long-range attacks? Gu Xingyin quickly used facts to tell him that she didn't need to attack from afar. The archer was about to go crazy. When he was watching the fight, he didn't feel it at all. But when he actually fought, he realized just how difficult it was to deal with Hidden Fragrance. She was simply like a lingering spirit that refused to disperse, following him like a shadow and unable to be shaken off. It was another round of crushing power. Stepping on the archer, Gu Xingyin didn't even bat an eyelid. The second one. Everyone. The toe-scratching man looked at Gu Xingyin with shining eyes and said excitedly, "Oh my god, you're so handsome. Damn, this is the first time I've seen a healer play like this. From today onwards, Hidden Fragrance Full Sleeve is my idol, no my goddess." Qi Li also looked at Gu Xingyin with shining eyes. He felt the blood in his body begin to boil. This long-awaited feeling of meeting his match made him excited. He stared at Hidden Fragrance Full Sleeve without blinking, his eyes emitting a wolf-like light. 8 o'clock ended. Please vote, vote, vote. Good night, everyone. Chapter 1891. Qi Li and Don't Scratch Their Feet were originally prepared. If those people went too far, they would show up and help Hidden Fragrance. But at this moment, they realized that they were unnecessary. However, it wasn't like they didn't gain anything. Don't Scratch Their Feet was exclaiming and praising while Qi Li calmly watched the slender mage crush her opponent. The light in his eyes showed that he wasn't calm at all. 13 people, 24 rounds of PK. It lasted for nearly 2 hours. In other words, including the time spent chatting and picking up the loot after the PK, Dark Fragrance Sleeve took 4 minutes to defeat an opponent. At the end, the group of players looked at Gu Xingyin as if they were looking at a monster. Didn't she get tired? Holographic online games weren't like those old games. Although the players were in a virtual world, they had to be highly focused. The quantum computer could only make a judgment. If it detected that the player's mental state was in a state of fatigue, it would automatically trigger a notification and force the player to log off within half an hour. Dark Star Sleeve, on the other hand, had fought 24 rounds of PK. In this kind of situation, any normal person would be mentally tired, right? But Dark Fragrance Sleeve's expression was very relaxed. She didn't show any signs of fatigue at all. Is he even human? These players' emotions were written all over their faces. Gu Xingyin didn't even need to think to know what they were thinking. She laughed softly, and the words that came out of her indifferent expression made the male players angry half to death. Don't worry about me, I'll PK with you. It won't take much of my energy. Everyone. Hashtag at percent asterisk at hashtag yen. Feel it yourself. Gu Xingyin didn't care what they were thinking. She raised her chin and pointed at the last assassin. Hurry up, finish this quickly. I still have things to do. The player stood up with a constipated expression. He closed his eyes and said stiffly, just give me a quick death. Gu Xingyin. It was rare for her to meet such a straightforward person. When the man saw that Gu Xingyin didn't make a move, he was dissatisfied. I say, hidden fragrance flowing sleeves, I know I'm not your opponent, but I don't want to appreciate your ability to crush me. Even if I'm blind today, I'll admit it. Why don't you just do it for me? Let's end this quickly. I'm going to log off and take a nap. The player started to doubt his life. He needed a good night's sleep. Gu Xingyin nodded. Okay. She picked up her staff and swung it down at the player. I swear, the price of Harris's staff is going to increase again, Hobo murmured to himself. Motherfasterous my goddess is using the effects of a divine sword. Chili didn't say anything, but his expression showed that he probably thought the same thing. Everyone saw 2 bright red critical hit, and -9,999, appear above the player's head. The player closed his eyes in satisfaction. Gu Xingyin happily bent down to pick up the things on the ground. Then she pouted. Alright, another piece of trash dropped. The player immediately revived. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a complicated expression. Hidden fragrance flowing sleeves. Can you tell me why your damage is so high? Gu Xingyin found the player pleasing to the eye. She tapped her finger and her stats window appeared in mid-air. Chapter 1892. There was no need to hide this. After all, Gu Xingyin knew that as long as someone paid attention to her battle, there would definitely be someone who could analyze it. That player looked at Gu Xingyin's stats and didn't say anything for a while. Everyone thought, F***ck. This lunatic. Isn't she a lunatic? They had never seen such a fragile healer with such high critical damage. According to Dark Fragrance's current HP, a well-equipped swordsman could probably take half of her HP in one hit. If she was lucky enough to get a critical hit, it would probably leave her with critical HP. This thought made many people restless. Then the cold reality woke them up. Damn it, after more than 20 matches, not a single player could touch Dark Fragrance's sleeves. If you wanted to leave her with critical HP, you had to be able to hit her first. While they were in a daze, Gu Xingyin had already collected all her loot. She lazily glanced at them and said, You guys are still here. Do you want to spar with me again? Spars didn't cause players to lose levels or equipment. However, the people who were already traumatized immediately reacted when they heard this. In less than a minute, the people in front of Gu Xingyin suddenly disappeared. Gu Xingyin straightened up and looked behind her. You two, you've been following me for so long and watching the show for so long. What's the matter? Toe-scratching Hunk stuck out his tongue. As expected, she had already discovered them. The two of them directly walked out. Seeing their IDs, Gu Xingyin raised her eyebrows. They were 2 big shots. Needless to say, Chili was the mysterious #1 on the PK leaderboard. Toe-scratching Hunk was also one of the few female players on the PK leaderboard. As for Dark Fragrance Sleeve, she was a mage, so naturally, she wouldn't fight for the PK leaderboard. But after that, Gu Xingyin laughed in her heart. That might not be the case. Seeing that Gu Xingyin didn't say anything, Toe-scratching Hunk walked to her side with a smile. Goddess. Dark Fragrance Sleeve. I'm your fan. Gu Xingyin looked at the little girl's bright smile, and did not express much. Then, what do you want to do by following me? The smile on the buff man's face froze. The Almighty was just like the rumors. Although he wasn't cold, he was very cold. Chili, who was standing beside her, suddenly said, We would like to invite you to join our fixed team. Gu Xingyin was surprised. God Chili's fixed team was quite famous in the entire Dragon Roar server. This was because the players inside were all famous players on the leaderboards. What was even rarer was that none of them had joined any guild. Countless guilds had tried to recruit them. If they could recruit this team into their own guild, it would be the equivalent of gaining 5 more peak experts. The combat power of the entire guild would rise by a large margin. Of course, the idea was beautiful. However, until now, not a single guild had succeeded. Gu Xingyin asked, "Why are you suddenly looking for me?" Before Chili could say anything, toe-scratching Hunk quickly said, "Because you're very strong god." She was such an outspoken girl. This was Gu Xingyin's evaluation of toe-scratching Hunk. She thought for a moment. Dark Fragrance Sleeve was now considered a free player. That kind of big guild had many restrictions, so it was not convenient for her to fight alone. Thinking about it this way, Chili's fixed team was actually a very good choice. Chapter 1893. However, she raised her eyebrows and looked at the two of them with a faint smile. "You think I'm good, so you invited me. But what benefits can you give me if I join your team?" The toe-picking burly man, not picking feet, was stunned when he heard this. She had never encountered such a problem before. When other people heard that Master Chili had personally invited them, they basically didn't refuse. Who would think of bargaining? She opened her mouth but couldn't say anything. Chili, who was standing on the side, suddenly said, "If you join our team, you will be able to open new dungeons and clear secret realms immediately. You won't have to worry about teammates dragging you down. Most importantly," he looked at Gu Xingyin and a smile suddenly appeared on his cold face, "I can guarantee that you will have the priority to choose the items dropped in any team dungeon." Don't Scratch Her Feet looked at her brother in disbelief. If she didn't see wrongly, her big brother just laughed, right? Laughed, right? And the priority to choose. In Chili's fixed dungeons, this right had always been enjoyed by Chili as the team leader. Because his strength was there, no one was unconvinced. How could he give this to Dark Fragrance so easily? Don't Scratch Her Feet knew that with her brother's wealth, he wouldn't care about such things. However, she still felt that it was strange for her brother to be so easy to talk to. Don't Scratch Her Feet's gossipy eyes kept sweeping over the two of them. Gu Xingyin was stunned. Of course, she knew how strong Chili's fixed team was. And in any dungeon or wild boss, the first group to eat crabs would always get the most items. To have the priority to choose in such a team, Gu Xingyin seemed to see countless federal coins flying towards her. She said straightforwardly, "Deal." Then, as soon as she turned around, she met the man's burning gaze. "Gu Xingyin, what's the matter?" Chili said calmly, "Do you want to have a spar?" Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment and nodded. A trace of interest rose in her heart. She had a rough understanding of the players in this game, but the combat power of the top players was still unknown. It wasn't an easy opportunity to spar with a great god who was ranked number 1 on the PK list. The man didn't scratch his feet and tactfully retreated far away. Then he clicked on the recording function. She also wanted to know how strong the limits of the goddess were. Gu Xingyin and Chili soon clashed. In just a short 2 minutes, the man had already rubbed his eyes several times. She felt that there might be something wrong with her eyes. She couldn't see the movements of those two people clearly. Yes, he couldn't see clearly. This wasn't a keyboard MMORPG, but a holographic game. With such fast movements, it meant that the player's skills aside, at the very least, their reflexes and brain speed had already reached this level. This was the first time she had seen a player who could fight her brother to such an extent in this game. There was no need to mention her brother's identity. What kind of person was this Dark Fragrance Flowing Sleeves in real life? The longer the two of them fought, the more surprised they became. Gu Xingyin was appreciative. She knew that the reason she could reach this level in the game was entirely because of the cheat. In real life, her physical fitness was still at the level of an ordinary person. But this Chili was obviously different from her. Chapter 1894. Gu Xingyin felt his bold and ruthless attacks. This kind of fighting style that did not hesitate, and almost every move hit the vital points. Gu Xingyin thought that she probably had some idea of Chili's origin. He was definitely not an ordinary person. Little did she know, Gu Xingyin was surprised, but Chili's shock was 100 times more than hers. He could sense that the opponent's offensive moves were completely different from his. At first, he thought that Hidden Fragrance was a military person like him. But he quickly denied this guess. The moves taught by the military were not like this. Just like what he learned, all the moves had only one purpose, and that was to make the opponent submit. The only characteristic was that it was fast, ruthless, and accurate. But Hidden Fragrance was different. Compared to his own moves, her moves were obviously much more smooth and pleasing to the eye. If one ignored the difficulty of her moves approaching like a shadow, just looking at her skills would make people feel that it was a kind of enjoyment. The center of Qi Li's mind was spinning rapidly. Could it be that this Hidden Fragrance was a descendant of some ancient martial arts family? Only those mysterious ancient martial arts families of Huaxia still kept such an inheritance, right? The reason why he was so sure was because he could completely see that the moves used by Hidden Fragrance were completely different from the skills in this game. This was also a major feature of holographic online games. Players could use various game skills, but they did not necessarily need to rely on game skills. Therefore, experts had once pointed out that in the next few decades, the relationship between holographic online games and real life would be closer. This was because for a large number of people, their skills in real life would not be wasted in holographic online games. Instead, they would become their own unique trump cards. Qi Li suddenly felt a pain in the back of his heart. Hidden Fragrance's laughing voice sounded in his ears. It's not a good habit to be distracted in battle. Qi Li turned around and saw something pressed against his back. It was a small dagger. Although it did not look very eye-catching, Qi Li knew that if this dagger was directly inserted into his vital points, with Hidden Fragrance's extremely high probability of explosive damage, he might lose more than half of his HP in an instant. After all, assassins were also a fragile profession. He said casually, "I lost." Gu Xingyin put away the dagger. She had a good impression of Qi Li. He was serious, and did not escape from reality. He was a responsible man. Not far away, the big guy who was not scratching his feet was already stunned. She looked at the video she had recorded and a thought flashed through her mind. I'm the only one who knows a huge secret. These two people were simply 2F** King Handsome. She ran toward the two of them. Goddess. I'll be honest with you. I've recorded the video of you fighting against the 13 people, as well as the video of you sparring with my brother just now. Can I upload them to the forum? Her eyes sparkled as she looked at Gu Xingyin expectantly. Qi Li also looked at Gu Xingyin. He didn't care, he just know. He know that Hidden want to be in the limelight. No, the world. Gu Xingyin made the decision almost without hesitation. Of course, as a person whose primary goal was to make money, she certainly did not reject fame. Not only did she want to be famous, but she also wanted to be famous. This way, more business would come to her door. See you in the evening. Chapter 1895. Gu Xingyin looked at the time. It was getting late. She turned to the two and said, I have to turn in a quest first, then go offline to eat and rest. I'll come back online at around 8 p.m. Both Qi Li and Don't Scratch Their Feet nodded. Gu Xingyin clicked on a teleport scroll. The next moment, she turned into a white light and disappeared in front of the two. After Gu Xingyin left, Don't Scratch Their Feet looked at her brother excitedly. Brother, don't you think we've found a great master? Qi Li's lips curled up slightly. It was rare for him to agree with his sister. She's really good. Gu Xingyin returned to Golden Hall in the main city. Golden Hall was the place where players could accept quests. She walked in, found the quest she had accepted, and clicked on it twice. She had accepted this quest before. This time, she clicked on it again to inform the other party that she had completed the quest. The subtext was, you can take the money and come to get the item. Soon, a petite figure appeared in front of Gu Xingyin. It was a very petite female swordsman. Her ID was a fleeting dream. To be honest, few girls were willing to play the swordsman class. This was because the swordsman's appearance was slightly clumsy. It was not as agile as the archer, nor as holy as the mage. Male players could feel that the swordsman's appearance was domineering, but for female players, the swordsman's appearance could be said to be the ugliest in the entire fantasy. However, this girl who looked very delicate and sweet had chosen this profession. However, this had little to do with Gu Xingyin. She reached out and took out the evening primrose. The girl's eyes lit up when she saw the evening primrose. Without hesitation, she clicked on her virtual panel a few times. Gu Xingyin immediately received a message. A fleeting dream has transferred 10,000 crystal coins into your account. Gu Xingyin looked at the female swordsman called a fleeting dream, who could take out 10,000 crystal coins without batting an eyelid, and then connected it with the ID that was full of youthful Chunibu. She immediately gave her a position in her heart, a silly person with a lot of money. She turned in the mission and was ready to leave, but Silly White Sweet recognized her. Great hidden fragrance sleeves. A fleeting dream called out to her from behind. Gu Xingyin turned around and asked, "What's the matter?" A fleeting dream looked at the side profile of the woman in front of him and blushed. "I want to ask, if I still want the moon primrose, will you still accept my mission?" A fleeting dream had an extremely persistent pursuit of fashion. One stalk of moon primrose could only be used on one piece of fashion or equipment, so it was clearly not enough. She had sent out many missions in the past, but each time, people either couldn't find the moon primrose, or they only found it after 10 days or half a month. She had never met someone who was as fast as hidden fragrance sleeves. Thus, she once again placed her hopes on Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin was stunned for a moment and asked, "You still want the moon primrose?" A fleeting dream nodded. "I want to fuse all of my equipment." Gu Xingyin. "Evil rich people," she directly said. "I still have 2 stocks here. If you want, I can sell them to you." A fleeting dream's eyes lit up when she heard this. She didn't even look and swiped her hands. "Your account has been transferred 20,000 crystal coins by a fleeting dream." Chapter 1896. Gu Xingyin. This kind of capricious rich person was really too annoying. But she liked it. Since Fleeting Dream was so straightforward, she didn't procrastinate and directly took out the remaining 2 stalks of moon primrose from her bag and traded them to her. Fleeting Dream was obviously very happy. When Gu Xingyin was about to turn around and leave, she still shouted, "Great God, let's add each other as friends. If you find more moon primrose in the future, remember to send me a private message. I'm always lacking them." Gu Xingyin. Then a very discordant voice came out. "Let me see who this is. Isn't this our great god Dark Fragrance? So, after leaving Iron Blood Lofty Aspirations, you're relying on quests to make a living?" Jiao Jiao's voice was soft, but her words were full of malice. Fleeting Dream's eyes widened, but Gu Xingyin's expression was normal. She looked at Stunning Enchanting, who was surrounded by several players, and faintly asked, "I'm relying on my own ability to make money. What does it have to do with you? Or is it because my self-reliant appearance makes you look like a trash who can only rely on men and hurt your fragile self-esteem?" Stunning Enchanting glared with her big eyes. I'm very busy. I don't have much time to listen to your nonsense." Fleeting Dream laughed out loud and looked at Gu Xingyin with eyes full of worship. Too amazing. She clearly has an expressionless face and doesn't care about anything. But just a few words from her mouth can make you angry half to death. Stunning Enchanting fiercely glared at Fleeting Dream, then turned to Gu Xingyin and said, "I really don't know why you're so arrogant here. Dark Fragrance, you're just a pitiful mage who was kicked out of the guild by Iron Blood Lofty Aspirations. Do you know the consequences of offending me?" Gu Xingyin looked at her as if she was looking at an idiot and said with a sigh, "I also don't know why you feel so good about yourself. I don't know what will happen to me if I offend you, but I really think you might need to take some medicine." After she said this, her face suddenly turned cold. "A good dog doesn't block the way. If you don't like me, you can directly PK me. Otherwise, my time is very precious. I don't have time to argue with you." She had a lot of good stuff on her. Gu Xingyin secretly thought that if he could trick her into having a PK with him. Unfortunately, Enchanting Beauty still had some intelligence. She knew that even though they were both mages, she might not be able to beat Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves. She looked at Gu Xingyin, who was standing there perfectly fine. She thought that the person she had hired had not made a move yet, so she persuaded herself to swallow her anger. She told herself, "What's the point of arguing with her now? He had ruined his image in front of so many people." Wait until those 10 people teach Hidden Fragrance a lesson. When the time came, she would come begging him. The enchanting beauty forcefully suppressed her anger and squeezed out a smile. Fine, Hidden Fragrance sleeves, you're quite strong-willed. I hope you can continue to be so strong-willed. Gu Xingyin chuckled and replied. You can rest assured that I, Hidden Fragrance flowing sleeves, won't live like you. Enchanting beauty. Why had she never realized before that Hidden Star flowing sleeves had such a cheap mouth? Gu Xingyin walked past Enchanting Beauty and walked out of Golden Hall. Fu Xingmengwu Xian, who stayed in Golden Hall, glanced at Enchanting Beauty and sneered softly, preparing to leave as well. Chapter 1897. Stunning Enchanting was already very upset. She saw that Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves would soon be in a miserable state, so she didn't argue with her. But who the hell was this unknown little girl in front of her? How dare such a silly girl laugh at her? She said with a cold face, Are you laughing at me? Floating Dream blinked her big eyes and said innocently, No. Stunning Enchanting's face relaxed a little, but she immediately heard Floating Dream's next sentence. What's there to laugh at? Dark Fragrance sleeves, I'm telling the truth. Stunning Enchanting! Exclamation point. She glared at Floating Dream, and without saying a word, she waved the staff in her hand and cast a light spell. This was the only offensive skill of a sorcerer. Obviously, Stunning Enchanting was furious. Floating Dream's figure flashed and dodged the attack. She narrowed her eyes and said coldly, You ugly woman, how shameless of you to sneak attack others. Ugly woman? For a woman who had always been confident in her beauty, this word was simply a great insult. Stunning Enchanting was about to explode with anger. She shouted to the people next to her. Don't you see that I'm being bullied? Are you all blind? Don't you know how to help me vent my anger? A dream of Floating Life's face was full of fear, like an innocent little white rabbit. What do you want to do? Stunning Enchanting finally felt a little better when she saw that she was about to tremble. She sneered and said, Little girl, I'll teach you a good lesson today. I'll teach you how to be a man. Fu Xingmengwu Xian blinked his eyes, and suddenly pulled something out of his backpack. It was the golden horn in this game. After using it, she could shout 3 sentences in the whole server to ensure that all online players could hear it. To be honest, this golden horn had no use, but it was very expensive. It was a very useless prop in this game. Seeing this little girl take out such a thing, Stunning Enchanting had a bad feeling in her heart. The next moment, she saw the little girl point the golden horn at her mouth and shout, Brother, your sister is being bullied in Golden Hall. Brother, your sister was bullied in Golden Hall. Brother, your sister was bullied in Golden Hall. Many people raised their heads strangely when they heard this. Some gossipy players had their eyes lit up and ran toward Golden Hall. The beautiful and enchanting woman's face turned ashen. She looked at Fu Xingmengwu Xian and sneered. Looking for a backer? I'm telling you, it doesn't matter who you call over today. I'm going to teach you a lesson. The beautiful and enchanting woman dared to say such a thing, because she was looking at a fleeting dream. She didn't seem like someone who was active in the Huanma. If she really had a big backer, would she be so low-key? After saying that, she said to her left and right, What are you waiting for? Aren't you going to teach this little girl a lesson? No one spoke. The enchanting beauty felt that something was wrong. Before she could turn around, she heard a sinister voice. Oh, you want to teach my sister a lesson? As her elder brother, I can't even do anything? The voice sounded familiar. Stunning Enchanting turned around doubtfully, and then her face turned pale in an instant. The man standing in front of her was wearing a large black cloak and holding a staff with a faint blue light in his hand. His extremely pale and handsome face was staring at her emotionlessly. Chapter 1898. What really made Exceptional Enchanting's expression change was his ID. Lich King. Dragon Roar's #1 guild, Dark Shrines Guild leader, the #1 dark mage in the entire server, Lich King. Although the Iron Blood pride was strong enough, it paled in comparison to the Darkness Shrine. That a fleeting dream was actually Lich King's sister? Exceptional Enchanting wanted to curse in her heart. With such a big backer, Why did she have to pretend to be a little white rabbit? She forced a smile and said, "This is all a misunderstanding." Lich King still had the same gloomy expression and didn't even have a smile. Misunderstanding? I only believe what I see with my own eyes. Exceptional enchanting. Gu Xingyin didn't know what happened after that. She went offline after completing the dating a fleeting dream unintentional quest. 5:30 p.m. She got up from the bed and walked in front of the dressing mirror. To be honest, Gu Xingyin was a little shocked when she first saw the person in the mirror. She was in the game when she transmigrated, and this was the first time she saw dark fragrance in real life. The dark fragrance in the game didn't have any facial features, and could only be said to be delicate. She originally thought that the original owner of this world was an ordinary girl, but it was clear that she thought too much. The female lead's luck in this world was basically all beauties, and this setting couldn't escape. Looking back at her memories, sure enough, when Qin Liqing entered the game, she lowered her appearance value by 50%. The real Qin Liqing had snow-white skin and extremely beautiful facial features. No matter from which angle one looked at her, she was an extremely outstanding beauty. Moreover, Qin Liqing had a very special temperament. She wasn't cold, but when others looked at her, it was as if they were looking at a quiet spring in a snowy mountain. A quiet and peaceful feeling instantly spread through the heart and body, causing people to shiver. Qin Liqing's decision to quit her job and focus on the game had something to do with her appearance. A young and beautiful girl without a backer couldn't avoid being coveted by some scum. Gu Xingyin lowered her eyes and got up to go to the kitchen. There were still some vegetables and some noodles left. She found an egg in the fridge and made herself a bowl of vegetable and egg noodles. After finishing her dinner quickly, Gu Xingyin picked up the trash bag by the door and went downstairs. Every day after dinner, he would take an hour's walk and come back to read for a while before going online. This was basically her life. Just as he finished throwing away the trash, his phone rang. Gu Xingyin glanced at the caller ID and picked it up. Yuding? Kai Yuding was probably one of Qin Liqing's few friends. This girl's family was very well-to-do, and she was spoiled. She studied directing in university, and after graduation, she relied on her family's connections to make a good living in the entertainment industry. She was considered a relatively famous new director. Qing Qing, have you thought about what I told you? That matter. Gu Xingyin refused her. I have said several times, Yuding, I am not interested in acting. You can find someone else. Kai Yuding had recently accepted a literary film, and the female lead in the film had not been decided yet. She had always been very fond of her good friend's temperament, and she refused to give up after being rejected many times. Gu Xingyin had no idea of developing another branch of the entertainment industry in this world, and once again refused her without hesitation. She habitually took out her mobile phone and clicked on the forum of Huanma while taking a walk. At this time, the video of the foot-scratching man not scratching his feet should have been posted. 8 o'clock. Routine request for votes. After everyone has finished watching, remember to vote for Gao Lingji. I want to make trouble on the list. Good night. Chapter 1899. Gu Xingyin found a bench in the neighborhood and slowly sat down to read the news. As expected, the hooligan didn't even use a Smurf account and directly used his own ID to post the two videos. Not only that, but she also expressed her opinion in a very excited tone. This is the first time I've seen a mage play like this. The games I played before were probably fake. Her words didn't hide her admiration for dark fragrance sleeves at all. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh when she thought of the girl who spoke so casually. She continued to scroll down. The post was already filled with comments. Majestic and flirtatious bunny. My mom asked me why I'm kneeling and playing with my phone. Dark fragrance sleeves, and I definitely don't play the same mage class. Small stormy building. Upstairs +1, licking the screen addict's face the whole time. My Miss Dark Fragrance is so cool. Sean Dandon's bright red. Upstairs you're shameless. Who's your miss? Miss Dark Fragrance, please accept my worship. Addict's face. Gu Xingyin couldn't help but laugh. Sure enough, no matter which world it was, there were all kinds of funny people in places like forums. This was the first video, which was the video of her PK with the dozen or so players. These comments were basically one-sided praises for her coolness. Looking at it, there was a line of people licking the screen. She watched for a while and continued to scroll down. The video of her battle with Chile was below. The style below was even weirder. One-sided brainless fans. Damn, these two are so cool. From now on, my male gods and goddesses are Chile and Dark Fragrance sleeves. Miss Dark Fragrance, I want to give birth to monkeys for you. God, Chile is so cool. Do the two of them lack a leg accessory? The kind that can warm the bed, act cute, do housework, and earn money. The more rational ones. To be honest, I've watched this video over and over again dozens of times, but I still can't see their movements clearly. It's too fast. I've always been unconvinced before. Why is Chile always number one on the PK leaderboard? But now I'm convinced, boss. Do you want to take a disciple? If you take a closer look at the battle between the two of them, it doesn't have much to do with the game's skills. Looking at how few special effects light up between their moves, you can tell that most of their fighting moves are based on their own qualities. What did this mean? This means that Chile and Hidden Fragrance also have such terrifying abilities in real life. It's terrifying to think about. Upstairs, now that you mention it, I'm also terrified. Thinking about it carefully +1, I think I've discovered some big shot. Thinking about it carefully +2, this is 2F* King Awesome. There were also some trolls running around. Who would believe such a stupid video? Dark Fragrance was a mage, yet she was able to solo and PK more than 10 offensive players. This is the biggest joke I've heard in this century. Either Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves cheated, or she spent her own money to find those people and put on a show together. Forget about Chile, he's always been so powerful. But Hidden Fragrance is just a mage, haha. I've been playing this game for more than a year. It's not like I haven't seen Hidden Fragrance flowing sleeves before. She's just a healer with decent skills. How can she be as good as in the video? However, the people on the forum weren't fools. Most of them could tell whether it was fake or photoshopped, okay? Chapter 1900. As for the cheat? Soon, Juanma's official staff came out to refute the rumors, saying that Juanma's core technology was quite confidential, and there was absolutely no sign of it being cracked. The so-called cheat was complete nonsense. Gu Xingyin read the post for a while, and her mood was quite good. That stunning enchanting must be in a good mood after reading this post. Anyway, she and stunning enchanting had already fallen out. She didn't know if her days in the Iron Blood heroic spirit would be as good as before. And Gu Xingyin suddenly felt something and looked in a certain direction. What a coincidence. A black luxury car slowly drove into the community garage. After a while, a man and a woman walked out with suitcases. The system had already reminded her of the appearance of the mission target. Stunning enchanting? Gu Xingyin thought that her command had crossed paths with her on the internet. She didn't expect to meet her in real life. She looked over there carefully. The woman wearing a tight black leather jacket had an excellent figure, full breasts, thin waist and perky buttocks. Walking on the road, she was definitely a very eye-catching stunner. Looking up at her face, Gu Xingyin didn't know why, but she felt a little disappointed. It wasn't that she wasn't beautiful. She had orange wavy hair and exquisite makeup. No matter how you looked at her, she was a beauty that was above average. Coupled with her voluptuous figure, she could definitely be called a gorgeous beauty. But maybe Gu Xingyin was used to her stunning face in the game. Seeing the real person without the halo bonus, she obviously felt a lot less beautiful. Gu Xingyin was sure that stunning enchanting's appearance was definitely adjusted. In her real appearance, although beautiful, she was far from the height of the #1 beauty in the server. Stunning enchanting frowned at the moment, and seemed a little unhappy. Next to her, a young man in a suit and leather shoes, who looked like a successful person, followed behind her with a suitcase. He seemed to be coaxing her. Gu Xingyin confirmed that stunning seductive didn't live in this neighborhood. But now she seemed to be moving closer to Gu Xingyin, probably because of the plot. As if sensing Gu Xingyin's gaze, the enchanting beauty suddenly turned her head. The moment she saw Gu Xingyin, her mood became even worse. She was already annoyed in her heart. Now that she saw a beauty with an outstanding temperament and appearance that was not inferior to her own leisurely leaning on the bench and sizing her up, she inexplicably felt even more displeased. When Gu Xingyin saw the stunning beauty looking over with a frown, she blinked her eyes and curled her lips into a faint smile. The man beside stunning beauty happened to turn around with his girlfriend and saw Gu Xingyin smile. He was stunned for a moment. The stunning and enchanting woman turned her head and saw the man's shocked expression. Anger rose in her heart, and she said coldly, "What are you looking at? You can't move after seeing a beauty? Zhang Jin, do you even put me, your girlfriend, in your eyes?" Zhang Jin came back to his senses and saw that the beauty in the white dress had already stood up and was about to leave. He quickly came back to his senses and coaxed his girlfriend. "Yao Yao, don't be angry. How can other women compare to you? In my eyes, there's only you." How could stunning beauty not understand the thoughts of these men? She didn't care about anything and coldly snorted. She stepped on her slender high heels and walked to the other side. Her boyfriend saw that she didn't give him any face and frowned for a moment before following her. Chapter 1901. When Gu Xingyin returned to his home, he spent some time checking up on stunning beauty. Of course, this important task was completed by the system. As Gu Xingyin expected, stunning allure had just moved in today. The successful man was her boyfriend, and this house was specially bought for stunning allure to make her happy. Gu Xingyin clicked her tongue in her heart. Qin Liqing liked this neighborhood a lot, and her goal was to buy a house in this nice neighborhood. However, she was still short of the down payment, so she could only rent someone else's house. Stunning allure didn't have to do anything, and someone was rushing to give her a house. This was probably the difference between people, right? She shook off these random thoughts, took her hollow brain, laid on her bed and entered the game. As expected, she received dozens of messages as soon as she went online. Most of them were friend requests and messages from various big guilds trying to rope her in. Gu Xingyin roughly scanned through them and wrote a unified reply to those people. There were a few others frowny-faced chilly. "Come to Mount Doom at 8:30 tonight. I'll introduce you to the others in the team and kill the boss of Mount Doom at the same time." Gu Xingyin's heart moved and she said, "Okay." She then looked at the others. "Iron Blood. Dark Fragrance. Why didn't you say that you were so skilled before? We've discussed it in the guild, and if you're willing to come back, we'll give you the position of an elder." He was a smart person, and he didn't say any hypocritical words, but directly stated his conditions. For a guild like Iron Blood Pride, the senior management wasn't just a title, but there were real benefits. Otherwise, who would be so bored as to spend so much time managing a large guild with over 1,000 members? However, a mere elder position. Gu Xingyin sneered. Iron Blood probably didn't know that the Dark Shrine had directly promised her the position of vice leader. She wasn't in the mood to use this to slap people in the face, so she casually rejected him. Fuxing Yimeng. God, I didn't expect you to be so lucky, but you're also so strong. God, do you need a disciple? I really worship you to death. Gu Xingyin. You're a swordsman, and you want a mage to be your disciple? Don't you feel like you're being cheated? Of course, she still refused. Further down, Gu Xingyin glanced at it. It wasn't anything important, so she ignored it. With such a delay, if they wanted to go to Mount Doom volcano, they would have to set off immediately. Mount Doom. The rest of the people were already waiting here. Actually, there weren't many people. Other than Qi Li and the toe-scratching man, there were only 3 people left. Swordsman players Majestic Bewitching Rabbit and I Am Swordsman Assassin player. Half-Life Dawn. If Gu Xingyin had a good memory, she would have realized that there were quite a few people who had supported her on the forum. At this moment, Majestic Beauty Bunny was pacing back and forth. Why isn't my goddess here yet? He tugged at I'm a swordsman and asked, "Don't I look cool with my equipment? Can I get some extra points in front of the goddess?" I am a swordsman. He didn't want to see this joker at all. Whenever he thought about how this joker's ranking on the PK leaderboard fluctuated with his, he felt tired. Chapter 1902. He said coldly, "Don't worry. Your appearance has always attracted girls. Majestic Bewitching Rabbit was delighted and said proudly, "Actually, I think so too. I'm a swordsman." He glanced at the pretty and tender little face of Majestic Wind and Bewitching Rabbit, and silently shut his mouth. Forget it, if I provoke him later, he'll draw his sword and start slashing people again. The toe-scratching burly man didn't scratch his feet. He looked at the two people who were bickering with each other with sparkling eyes. There was a kind of passionate aura in his eyes. Majestic Bewitching Rabbit didn't notice it, but I'm a swordsman felt weird. He felt that don't scratch his feet's gaze was very strange. He couldn't help but have goosebumps. But the other party was a girl, so he couldn't say it directly, so he could only hold it in. When Gu Xingyin arrived, she saw Qi Li and don't scratch his feet talking about something. As for the other three people, a female assassin was standing alone on the side as if she was watching a good show, and two other swordsmen were bickering. Seeing her, the swordsman called Majestic Bewitching Rabbit's eyes lit up, and he instantly jumped in front of her. "Hello, goddess. Let me introduce myself. I'm Majestic Bewitching Rabbit. You can call me Rabbit." Gu Xingyin looked at the swordsman, who was obviously still a young man, and showed a friendly smile. "Hello, Rabbit. I'm Hidden Fragrance Sleeves." Majestic Bewitching Rabbit's face suddenly turned red. Was Gu Xingyin thinking about what she had just done? The girl in front of her blushed and asked shyly, "Goddess, do you have a boyfriend? Can I pursue you? I can cook and do housework. I eat little and don't take up much space." Gu Xingyin was dumbfounded. I'm a swordsman at the side coldly grabbed this silly girl by the collar and threw her into the sky. "How embarrassing," he said coldly. "I'm a swordsman, Hidden Fragrance Sleeves. Nice to meet you." Gu Xingyin nodded. She could not help but look at the majestic and charming rabbit in the bushes. I'm a swordsman followed her gaze and explained, "He'll only lose a few HP at most. Don't worry about him." He thought for a moment and said, "Rabbit's personality is a bit funny. Don't take his words too seriously." Before he could finish speaking, Majestic Bewitching Rabbit's indignant roar erupted from the bushes. "I'm the Blade Master. F*CKU. I want to PK you." "I'm a swordsman," said coldly. "It takes 3 months to drop a level." Majestic Demonic Rabbit. "I want to spar with you." Gu Xingyin couldn't hold it in any longer and burst out laughing. He was simply a clown. Qi Li and the others seemed to have seen enough of the commotion and walked over. As the team leader, Qi Li said, "This is a new member of our team. I'm sure everyone knows her. She's Hidden Fragrance, a mage." As he said this, he seemed to find it a little funny, so he added, "Well, not the usual kind of mage." Everyone laughed. The only female assassin who did not introduce herself also reached out her hand to Gu Xingyin. "Hidden Fragrance Sleeves, I've heard a lot about you. I'm Half-Life Morning Dawn." Gu Xingyin smiled and shook her hand. Half-Life Morning Dawn blinked and said, "Master, we know your skills, but I have to confirm it. After all, you're a mage and we don't have any other healers in our team." Gu Xingyin instantly understood what she meant. She replied confidently, "Don't worry, I'm sure I'm a healer." She was violent, but at crucial moments, she was still very useful. 4 gongs. See you tonight. Chapter 1903. Sometimes it was better to take action than to talk. Gu Xingyin did not want to explain more to them. She said, "I heard that there will be an instance tonight. Why don't we try it together? When this instance is over, you can evaluate again and see if I have the strength of your team." Her words were very frank. So frank that it was a little rude. But such words, coupled with the strong combat power she had shown before, and that calm face, it inexplicably gave people a sense of confidence. The toe-scratching man opened his mouth to say something, but he was stopped by Qi Li. He said directly, "Then let's not waste time and enter the instance." He probably knew that a person like Dark Fragrance Flowing Sleeves would not take advantage of others for no reason. Gu Xingyin thought, "I'll get the best treatment, and I'll naturally prove to you that I have the corresponding strength." Mount Doom was a new instance, and its difficulty was the highest in the server. Qi Li's team had tried it twice before, but they were defeated by the final boss. After that, the mages of the fixed team had abandoned their accounts because of some things in real life. Their team had temporarily pulled people in to try it a few times, but they had not succeeded once. Not only Chili's team, but the entire server, no less than 100 teams had explored this instance. However, without exception, all of the 100 teams had died. There were even players who angrily went to the official forum to post questions, saying that with the current level and strength of the players, even if the top players on the PK list formed a team, they would not be able to pass this instance. He was simply toying with them. But the official forum gave a reply, saying that the instance that came out at each stage was developed according to the development of each stage of the game and the comprehensive strength of the players. It was impossible for there to be an unsolvable situation. In other words, although the difficulty of the Mount Doom instance was enough to reach the ultimate mode, in theory, it could be completely conquered. The official attitude was very tough, and the players' dissatisfaction was also suppressed. Back to the topic. Chili's fixed team had always been known as the first team in Dragon Roar. This first place was a ranking that included the elite teams of the major guilds. At least half of the first clears of the entire Dragon Roar server were in the hands of Chili's team. Naturally, they wanted to obtain the Mount Doom Volcano Instance dungeon as well. Before entering the dungeon, Chili had informed Gu Xingyin of some of the dungeon's characteristics. Gu Xingyin nodded to show that she understood. The instance dungeon was divided into 3 parts. The second round and the second round were all small bosses. Chili's team was already experienced and quickly got the hang of it. As a healer who only needed to stand behind her teammates and heal them, Gu Xingyin had nothing to do right now. Looking at the 5 of them, she didn't need to do anything for the time being, so she simply stood aside and observed them. It was obvious that the 5 of them had great teamwork. This kind of tacit understanding was naturally born after a long period of cooperation. Gu Xingyin could not integrate into it for the time being. She looked at the man in black who was at the front. At this moment, his sword was very stable, fast, and accurate. Every time he swung his sword, he was able to deal a considerable amount of damage. Without a doubt, Chili was the absolute center of the entire team. Chapter 1904. As for the others, after looking around, Gu Xingyin roughly understood why this team was able to suppress the elite teams of the major guilds and sit firmly on the throne of the top team. Every one of them was very strong, and their individual styles were very obvious. Looking at them separately, they could definitely be considered the best in their respective professions. However, after forming a team, these people spontaneously adjusted their state of mind. They did not have any intention of showing off. Instead, they tried their best to integrate themselves into the team and strive to maximize the team's strength. It would be strange if such a team was not strong. Gu Xingyin's eyes flashed. The first floor's mini-boss had fallen under Chili's last critical hit. Gu Xingyin pointed her staff, and a large white halo enveloped everyone. Flare of light, recovering 10% of the members' stamina. She clearly saw that in this battle that lasted less than 5 minutes, Swordsman was the only one who lost a bit of health. He had already taken a health potion the moment his health dropped. Swordsman looked at Gu Xingyin and said embarrassedly, "Sorry, I'm used to fighting without a magician. I can't change it in such a short time." He was afraid that Gu Xingyin would hold a grudge. After all, there was a magician here, and he still took a potion. It was an insult to her class. Gu Xingyin shook her head. No matter what class, it's all about the final victory. You can calculate your own health and recover it in time. That's your skill. Chili heard this and looked at Gu Xingyin strangely. He admired this female magician's character more and more. Next was the second round. It was also a Western dragon with half of its body in the lava. The bosses from the first 2 stages didn't have overpowered stats. Their biggest feature was their high HP. Even if it stood there and allowed the players to attack it, it would take more than 10 minutes for the players to kill it. Gu Xingyin displayed her overpowered attack for the first time in front of others. The others opened their eyes wide and stared at the 2 agile figures in front of the dragon. They could not help but be stunned. Majestic Presence and Bewitching Bunny stopped what they were doing when they saw the health bar of the boss. He opened his mouth wide and said, "When I watched the video before, I only thought that the goddess was very powerful. But now, seeing a mage deal damage that's even more frightening than boss, I really feel like this world is 2F** King fantastic. One had to know that Chile used at least half of his skills as an assassin. It was easy for others to see the black light flashing on his dagger from time to time. However, Hidden Fragrance Sleeves was different. She had been using her self-created moves the entire time. In other words, it didn't belong to this game. It was a move that she had mastered herself. I Am Swordsman also stopped. They knew very well that this boss didn't need their help. He looked at the white-colored magician silhouette, and a glint flashed across his eyes. After this instant's dungeon is over, I must find her and spar with her. Majestic demonic rabbit. He knew it. I'm swordsman. I'm a taciturn person. My personality is not likable at all. With a loud bang, the boss fell down unwillingly. Chile picked up all the dropped items and put them into the team's shared backpack. Their team had always waited until the instant's dungeon was over before splitting the loot. Chapter 1905. The 6 of them continued to move forward. The rest of them had solemn expressions. After all, they had failed this level many times. Gu Xingyin, on the other hand, was secretly excited. Conquering a monster that no one else could conquer was a feeling she was looking forward to. The final boss of the Volcano of Doom Instance dungeon was a monster with 3 heads. The lower half of the monster's body was submerged in the red magma. On its 3 heads, 6 lantern-like eyes were half open. Almost as soon as they entered, Gu Xingyin felt a scorching heat surrounding her. The effect was indeed realistic. Chile looked at the final boss with a solemn expression. It seemed to be taking a nap. He said, "This monster doesn't actually have a lot of HP, but it's very difficult to deal with. We've failed every time because of this." He seemed to be talking to everyone, but Gu Xingyin knew that he was actually talking to her. After all, everyone here had encountered this boss several times. She was the only one who had encountered it for the first time. Chile continued, "This monster has 3 heads. We have to destroy the HP of all 3 of its heads at the same time to pass the level. However, this monster has a very disgusting skill." He looked helpless. As long as any one of its heads dies, it will trigger the monster to go berserk. The berserk monster only has one ultimate skill. The effect of that ultimate skill is, the entire Volcano of Doom Instance dungeon will be flooded by magma. As soon as he said this, the rest of them showed a look of lingering fear. The 6 senses in this game were too realistic. The pain and feeling of watching oneself being swallowed by magma was really quite satisfying. Moreover, Hobo Not Scratching His Feet continued, "It's not realistic to attack all 3 heads in turn. This monster has another disgusting skill, which is damage transfer. In other words, it can transfer the wound on any of its heads to the other heads. In other words, she looked like she had nothing left to live for. As long as the damage of all 3 heads reaches a certain level, it will immediately go berserk." What was even more shocking was that once this monster went berserk, it basically meant that the instance dungeon would fail. The entire instance dungeon would be flooded by magma. They had no chance of surviving in such an environment. Gu Xingyin was speechless. This was indeed a trap. She turned to Chile and asked, "Captain, what do you think?" Chile raised his eyebrows when he heard the way the captain addressed him. He glanced at Gu Xingyin and said, "If we want to clear the dungeon, there is only one way, and that is to deal a lot of damage and destroy all 3 of its heads at the same time." His words were very simple. Many people know about this method, but no team has ever succeeded. Gu Xingyin. She opened her virtual panel and looked at the monster's detailed data. After looking at it for a while, she suddenly said, "The boss has a total HP of 100,000. Each of its heads has about 33,000 HP, which means that it won't go berserk as long as the total damage doesn't exceed 33,000. Everyone nodded in agreement. Gu Xingyin asked again, "Well, I have an idea now, but there is a prerequisite." Hobo Not Scratching His Feet heard that she had an idea. His eyes lit up and he quickly asked, "What is the prerequisite?" Gu Xingyin glanced at him and said, "Strictly control the boss HP, and then within 5 seconds, reduce the boss HP by 67,000. Chapter 1906. 5 seconds. Everyone looked at the boss's insane defense and fell silent. I'm a blade master, spoke first. Under normal circumstances, I can take away 800 of the boss's HP in one attack. If it's a critical hit, it's 1500 plus. Within 5 seconds, I can make up to 5 normal attacks and 1 single target skill. Single target skills can take away 3000 plus HP. If it's a critical hit, it's 5000 plus HP. For players to make 1 critical hit out of 5 normal attacks, it was considered good. In other words, I'm a blade master could deal around 700 to 800 damage in 5 seconds. In the entire team, I'm a blade master's attack was second only to Qi Li and Gu Xingyin. Moreover, Half-Life Morning Dawn was an archer, and his single target damage was not as high as a swordsman's. Under normal circumstances, with perfect reflexes, the 4 of them could deal around 30,000 plus damage. Gu Xingyin and Qi Li needed to deal with more than half of the boss's HP in 5 seconds to clear the dungeon. Gu Xingyin looked at them and said, "Mages have a support skill that can stun the opponent for 5 seconds. However, I can't guarantee a 100% success rate. Moreover, mages don't have any single target skills. I can only use normal attacks for 5 seconds. I don't know how much damage I can do." Everyone was silent. The only advantage was that she could use her own skills and not be limited to 5 times. If she was fast enough, it wouldn't be impossible for her to do it dozens of times in 5 seconds. Gu Xingyin didn't mention this for the time being, because she wasn't sure. Qi Li pondered for a moment and said, "If I use normal attacks, I can only attack 5 times. However, if I attack myself, I can attack 20 times in 5 seconds. However, I'm not sure how much damage I can do." He had never tried such a strategy before. Everyone was eager to try. In fact, they did not think that they could clear the dungeon like this. Qi Li decided, "Let's try it first and see if it's feasible." Everyone else nodded. And so for the first time, in less than 2 minutes, everyone was back outside the dungeon. Seeing everyone looking at him, Majestic Bunny wanted to cry but had no tears. "I apologize." Who would have thought that his attack would result in a critical hit? Then, the boss instantly went berserk after losing one of its heads, and sent everyone back collectively. The second time, another 3 minutes passed. Gu Xingyin's face was expressionless as she calmly said, "I've already said that the stun skill can be dodged." Everyone. The third time. Before entering the dungeon, Gu Xingyin suddenly said, "Wait." Everyone looked at her strangely. Gu Xingyin said calmly, "Let's all pray for good luck." Everyone. However, perhaps because they were influenced by Gu Xingyin, they suddenly started to believe in this. Gu Xingyin said calmly, "Make a wish, make a critical hit, stun once and succeed." Everyone. With such a perfunctory manner, it would be strange if it really worked. But soon their faces began to hurt. It was unexpectedly smooth. Seeing that the boss's health was about to reach a critical point, Gu Xingyin said, "Qi Li, go and make a critical hit. I'll use a skill." Qi Li responded and rushed up without hesitation. He slashed the boss with his dagger. Critical hit. Minus 3,800. I'll be honest, I've never played an online game before. It's all based on imagination. It's tiring. Dear, after you've finished reading, remember to vote for me. Good night. Chapter 1907. It was a critical hit. Everyone was overjoyed, but they did not have the time to admire it. Just as the boss's eyes turned red, a faint golden halo landed on its body. That was the most important thing. The boss's mountain-like body suddenly stopped moving. Everyone was overjoyed. It was a success. The black and white figures flashed, and almost instantly, 4 consecutive damage values appeared on the boss's body. 1400, 3900, 1498, 4200. Out of the 4 normal attacks from Gu Xingyin and Qi Li, 2 of them were critical hits. The others were not slow either. Almost at the same time when the stun halo landed, they were ready to attack, but their speed was not as fast as the other 2. Skills flashed one after another, and the boss's HP dropped at a terrifying speed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There was almost 20,000 HP left. The boss's eyes turned red again. Half Dawn's eyes flashed with a hint of regret. They did not have time to attack, and Dark Fragrance had just finished her last attack. Only the leader's ultimate skill had not been used. Although the leader was strong enough, 20,000 damage, Gu Xingyin's eyes moved and shouted, "Eyes!" Qili did not hesitate. The dagger in his hand suddenly flashed with a black light, and directly pierced into the boss's eyes. 6 pairs of eyes stared at it at the same time. -19999. Critical hit. Along with the bright red words, the boss's eyes in the lava suddenly darkened. At the same time, all the players in Dragon's Roar saw the golden words rising in midair. That was awesome. Congratulations to players Qili, Hidden Fragrance, I Am a Swordsman, Hoof Not Hoof, Majestic Bewitching Rabbit, and Half-Life Dawn, for completing the first kill of the Mount Doom dungeon. The whole server was in an uproar. The whole world channel was crazily flooded with messages. Windy cool. What the F***CK? Am I hallucinating? The crazy volcano of Doom dungeon was actually cleared? Eat duck or eat chicken? Guru Qili's team is awesome. No, I need to eat spicy sticks to calm down. Watch a lively scene. Upstairs, you're not eating chicken or duck. Switch to spicy strips. Eat chicken or eat duck. I'm tight on money recently, so I can't afford it. Fu Xing Yiming Wuxin. Great gods, you are so powerful. Ah, that crazy dungeon, Mount Doom volcano. I've already knelt there a dozen times. However, no matter how lively the world channel was, it clearly had nothing to do with the current 6-man party. At this moment, they were watching the boss in the lava unwillingly collapse, turning into a crimson light and disappearing. In the place where the boss had been, there was a huge treasure chest that was almost half the height of a normal person. Majestic presence and seductive Bunny's eyes lit up as he stared at the treasure chest. Oh my god. This is the first time I've seen such a huge treasure chest. Not only him, but the others also saw such a big treasure chest for the first time in Huanma. The few of them looked at each other, and in the end, they all looked at Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin was confused. Why are you all looking at me? Qili smiled. That's because our entire team is unlucky. You seem to be quite lucky. That's right. How many critical hits did they make in the 5 seconds just now? This was something that had completely exceeded the normal probability of happening. Chapter 1908. The few of them who were always unlucky thought about it carefully. It seemed that before the battle, Dark Fragrance's attitude was very perfunctory. Everyone used this to tease her before, but they never thought that it would actually be very useful. Whether it was a coincidence or not, everyone felt that they could pin their hopes on one more time. What if there was another coincidence? Gu Xingyin was a bit helpless. She said, aren't things like probability set by the system? Half-Century Morning Dawn said seriously, however, this thing really depends on one's luck. And it was clear that their entire team wasn't the type with good luck. Gu Xingyin said helplessly, okay, since it's like this, I'll give it a try. But let's make it clear, if it's trash, I won't take the blame. Toe-scraping burly guy casually said, Sister Dark Fragrance, don't worry. No matter how unlucky you are, you won't surpass us. The others nodded in agreement. Gu Xingyin. She didn't waste any more words. She walked up, reached out her hand, and gently placed it on top of the chest. A glaring golden light lit up. Before everyone could see the contents of the chest clearly, another server announcement appeared in the sky. A phenomenon has descended from the heavens. A divine artifact has appeared. Congratulations to player Dark Fragrance for obtaining the golden divine artifact Shadowless Boots. The world channel exploded again. In the dungeon, the 5 people looked at the announcement in the sky and fell silent again. After a while, I'm a swordsman sighed. Our team has been here for more than a year, and we've finally welcomed a Golden Finger. Golden Finger was the name given to players in Huanma who were especially lucky and had a high chance of opening treasure chests. Majestic Presence Bewitching Rabbit directly shouted, Damn, I can't believe I'm able to see someone get a divine artifact in my lifetime. Sister Dark Fragrance. Do you still need a leg accessory? At this time, the golden light finally dissipated, and they could finally see the contents of the chest clearly. There were many things in the chest, but the most eye-catching one was a pair of gorgeous black boots with golden edges at the top. These boots should be the divine artifact shadowless boots. Don't scratch his feet. The big guy clicked his tongue and lamented. As expected of a divine artifact. Just by looking at it, you can tell that it's of a high grade. Gu Xingyin picked it up, and the attributes of the boots immediately appeared before everyone's eyes. Name, Shadow Boots grade. Golden divine artifact suitable professions. All. Properties. Equipping this godly relic increases player's agility by 25% and grants a 30% chance to dodge a fatal attack. Limited to 2 attacks per round. F***CK. Majestic presence and flirtatious bunny's eyes widened. These stats are heaven-defying. Gu Xingyin was also surprised. She didn't expect the boot's attributes to be so good. With a 25% increase in agility, it was simply the best partner for certain classes with high agility. The group fell silent for a moment before looking at Qi Li, Gu Xingyin, and Half-Life Chen Xiao. The other 3 were swordsmen, so in comparison, the effect of this divine weapon would not be so obvious. However, archers and archers were both jobs that required high agility. As for Gu Xingyin, although mages didn't have high agility requirements, they couldn't help but be heaven-defying. Everyone thought about Hidden Fragrance's frightening speed. If she had this 25% boost. Half-Life Chen Xiao spoke first. I don't want it. Seeing everyone's gaze on her, she smiled and said, it's a waste for this divine artifact to be on me. Relatively speaking, Captain and Sister Dark Fragrance can make use of it better. Chapter 1909. Gu Xingyin was shocked. After all, this was a celestial artifact. It was very likely that the value of the other items in the treasure chest was not even half of the value of this celestial artifact. Half Morning Dawn actually said that she did not want it? This girl's eyes were too calm. Gu Xingyin looked at her and confirmed that this was her true thoughts. She looked at the shadow boots on the ground and silently looked at her own attribute panel. Suddenly she said, I don't want this either. Leader, you take it. This time, Qili was really surprised. He really liked this celestial artifact. However, he had thought about it. If the 2 girls in the team wanted it, as a man, he would not fight for it. He did not expect that the 2 of them would give it up one after another. Meeting the gazes of the others, Gu Xingyin smiled casually and said, for a celestial artifact like the shadow boots, of course, it is best for the user to use it to the fullest. My basic agility isn't that good, so using this 25% bonus on me is really a waste. When she said this, everyone remembered that Dark Star Full Sleeves was a mage. As for mages, they did not have any requirements for agility. Naturally, their basic attributes were not very high. Qili looked at Gu Xingyin seriously. After confirming that this was her true thoughts, he nodded. Then I'll take the boots. Let's check the other items first and see what we got this time. Hearing this, the few of them turned their attention to the treasure chest. Looking at it, they could not help but feel that Gu Xingyin was indeed a huge cheat. The items in this treasure chest were really too many. Apart from some miscellaneous trinkets, there were still a few items that were relatively good. Star necklace. Blessing from the Star Goddess. Suitable for mages. Critical hit +2. A set of purple high-tier equipment blueprint. If the attributes of this set were good, the effect of the set would be comparable to a celestial artifact. As for this set, it was obviously a set of equipment with very good attributes. The 3 swordsmen looked at each other and chose the fairest role. This time, Gu Xingyin truly understood what it meant to be unlucky. A swordsman managed to get this set of blueprints with only 2 points. Because the other 2 Africans were both 1. Gu Xingyin looked around. She took a star necklace and chose some good materials. All of these things had one thing in common. They were very rare and valuable. That's right, Gu Xingyin was planning to sell all of these things. After everyone had chosen their items, Qili swiped on the virtual panel. Everyone's account had an additional 50,000 crystal coins. Gu Xingyin looked at him in surprise. Qili smiled. Don't refuse. I'm the only one who's taken advantage of this. You deserve it. Gu Xingyin glanced at the others and found that they all accepted the items with normal expressions. The hooligan didn't scratch his feet. He quietly came to Gu Xingyin's side and said, "Sister Hidden Fragrance, just accept it. My brother is a tycoon. If he gives you money, don't be polite. Just accept it." Since her sister said so, Gu Xingyin no longer held back. She calculated her wallet and suddenly laughed. "I seem to have saved enough for the down payment of a house." As soon as this was said, the others asked with interest, "Sister Dark Fragrance wants to buy a house? Where is Sister Dark Fragrance from?" Gu Xingyin told them the city she was in. Qi Li's expression changed. "She was in the same city? Sorry darlings, I'm stuck. There are only 3 updates in the afternoon. At 10:05 p.m., or 8 o'clock p.m. no less. See you tonight." Chapter 1910. What a coincidence, Sister Dark Fragrance. I'm also in Deep Sea City. Which district are you in? Gu Xingyin reported her approximate location. After all, Deep Sea City was so big. She didn't believe that they could guess her location in such a big district. Hearing this, Big Guy Scratch Feet said with some regret, "It's a little far, but if we have time, we can come out and meet." Gu Xingyin smiled and didn't answer. She didn't want to connect reality with the internet. The few of them chatted for a while, and left the dungeon. The Doomsday Volcano dungeon was a bit mysterious. When in the dungeon, no news from the outside world could be received. So as soon as she came out, Gu Xingyin found that her private chat was constantly flashing. She clicked on it. Sure enough, they were all players who were asking about the strategy of the Doomsday Volcano dungeon. Originally, those people were very interested in the Doomsday Volcano dungeon. Now that they had dropped a divine artifact, it aroused the interest of many players. Many people were holding on to the hope that next time, they would be in such a good mood and want to give it a try. However, most of the people with such thoughts had not studied the game carefully. If they had studied it carefully, they would have found that so far, there had never been any dungeon or secret realm that had produced more than 2 divine artifacts. Moreover, basically, in any dungeon, the richest rewards were at the time of the first kill. Gu Xingyin raised her head and looked at the others. Sure enough, everyone had received private chats. Don't Scratch Feet was a simple-minded girl. She said, "When we were in the dungeon, I always had a video recording on. Otherwise, I would have posted it on the forum. It would have saved these people from constantly looking for us." Gu Xingyin took a look and found that everyone else seemed to agree with him. She sighed and said, "If possible, do you mind if I use this video to exchange for something?" The others looked at her doubtfully. Gu Xingyin blinked and said, "There must be many guilds and teams that want our strategy now. Why don't we sell it?" Everyone. Dark Fragrance's reputation of loving money really wasn't a lie. Qi turned to look at Gu Xingyin. This girl, whose face was delicate and pretty to the point of being somewhat cold, had a face without any desire as she spoke of her extremely realistic plan without any change in her expression. His heart skipped a beat. He actually felt that this Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves looked a little cute. Qi thought to himself with an expressionless face. This was probably what his little sister often said, contrasting cuteness. To be honest, none of the 5 members of Qili's fixed team lacked money. Naturally, they had never thought of this problem. However, they weren't some kind of saint who loved Feng Xian. They only suggested putting the video on the internet because they thought it was convenient to avoid being harassed all the time. Since Gu Xingyin had spoken, they naturally wouldn't have any objections. The man didn't scratch his feet. He directly sent the video to Gu Xingyin and said, "I'm not good at these things. Sister Hidden Fragrance, you can do as you see fit." Gu Xingyin looked at them and knew that they had never done such a thing before. She nodded and took the things without saying anything. She directly sent a message to the World Channel. "Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves. If you want the Mount Doom walkthrough video, send me a private message." Not long after this sentence appeared, Gu Xingyin's private chat became lively. The first person to contact Gu Xingyin was Dark Fragrance flowing sleeves old boss, Iron Blood Heroic Feelings. Today's 4th update. Sorry, I didn't write the 10:05 I promised. Something happened and my mood was affected. It's my own fault. Sorry. I'll continue writing before midnight tonight and try to write the remaining 4 updates. Everyone likes to sleep early. Go to bed early and read it tomorrow. Chapter 1911. Iron Blood. Are you there, Dark Fragrance? Gu Xingyin looked at the way Iron Blood addressed her, and the corner of her mouth curled up for some reason. She clearly remembered that when she first came to this world and left Iron Blood Lofty Guild, Iron Blood had called her Dark Fragrance Sleeves. It was as if the friendship between Dark Fragrance Sleeves and Iron Blood Lofty Guild for more than a year no longer existed. Now he was trying to get close to her? She glanced at it and closed the chat window. The other people who came to Gu Xingyin were basically people from the big guilds. Occasionally, there were a few accounts that she didn't know. Gu Xingyin's reply was quite simple. You want a strategy video? Sure, no problem. I'll buy it for 10,000 crystal coins. It was also this time that Gu Xingyin knew that there were really a lot of rich people in this game. This was because she basically didn't hear anyone refuting her words. They would transfer the money to him without hesitation. Soon, she had traded with more than 10 people. At this time, Iron Blood sent another message. Gu Xingyin took the time to reply to him. Iron Blood Lofty Guild was silent for a moment, and very straightforwardly transferred the crystal coins to Gu Xingyin's account. However, after the money was cleared, Iron Blood Lofty Guild didn't immediately leave. They once again tried to befriend Gu Xingyin. The meaning behind his words was that he wanted Dark Fragrance Sleeves to return to Iron Blood Lofty Guild. Gu Xingyin sneered. Everyone knows about the grudge between me and Enchanting Beauty. Iron Blood Guild leader, are you willing to kick such a beauty out of the guild? Iron Blood didn't think that after so long, Dark Fragrance Sleeves would still report about such things. He said, it's all a small misunderstanding. We're all adults. What's so hard about this kind of small conflict? Enchanting Beauty already told me that she's willing to shake hands with you and make peace. Gu Xingyin sneered and interrupted him. Shake hands and make peace? What does Enchanting Beauty count for? What qualifications do you have to shake hands with me? Let me tell you the truth, Iron Blood Guild leader. I, Hidden Fragrance, am not a magnanimous person. I will never forgive those who have offended me. As for that beautiful and enchanting woman, she sneered. Keep an eye on her, and remember to tell her to be careful. Don't fall for me. Iron Blood did not expect that Hidden Fragrance Sleeves would be so difficult to deal with. These days, as Dark Fragrance's reputation in the server grew, many of the guild's elders were dissatisfied with him for letting Dark Fragrance leave the guild. Those elders had a lot of authority in the guild. If they were really dissatisfied with him, it would affect his image in the guild. As for stunning Enchanting Beauty, she had been grumbling and acting coquettishly in his ears these days. Sometimes he would get impatient, but when he turned around and saw the beautiful and enchanting face, all his anger would instantly dissipate. Men, after all, could not resist the charms of beautiful women. The two of them parted on bad terms. Gu Xingyin deleted Iron Blood from her friends list. She suddenly remembered that she had seen stunning Enchanting Beauty in person. She had clearly seen that man at the time. He was not Iron Blood. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Gu Xingyin finished the last round of transactions. She counted and found that there were more than 20 teams looking for her for the video. On average, each person would earn more than 40,000 crystal coins. She transferred the money to other people's accounts and soon received a surprised reply. Chapter 1912. Gu Xingyin briefly explained the situation. Majestic and flirtatious bunny. As expected of my goddess. Her business acumen is amazing. I'm convinced. Qili didn't say much. He just sent a thumbs-up emoji. Gu Xingyin looked at the time. It was 10:30 p.m. She said goodnight to them and logged out of the game. Gu Xingyin, who had just woken up, quickly took a shower and washed up before lying on the bed. She estimated her current savings. It was enough for the down payment of a house in this neighborhood. She had already found a house in this neighborhood, but it was in another building. The environment there was better. Facing the floor-to-ceiling window was a huge garden with flowers blooming all year round. Gu Xingyin thought for a while. Buying a house was more or less half of Qinliqing's wish. She didn't go online the next day. Instead, she went to the sales center. Because she had been paying attention for a long time, Gu Xingyin went through all the procedures without a hitch. The sales lady was very enthusiastic and recommended several well-reputed renovation companies to Gu Xingyin. Gu Xingyin thanked her, and chose one based on her preferences. The whole day passed in a blink of an eye. Gu Xingyin was in a good mood. She decided to reward herself with a good meal. She went to a very famous buffet restaurant in the city. She couldn't help it. Whether it was Chinese or Western food, it was better for 2 or more people to eat. She did not expect that she would be able to witness such a good show during a simple meal. She took a plate of fruit salad and chose a steak and a cocktail. She found a seat by the window and ate slowly. She glanced at the young people riding bicycles in pairs in the square outside the window. A voice caught her attention. "Why don't you go to a proper Western restaurant?" The woman's voice sounded like she was complaining. Gu Xingyin immediately knew who it was. She turned around. It was indeed an enchanting woman. However, the man sitting opposite her gave Gu Xingyin a shock. Iron blood? Why was he here? In her impression, when Dark Fragrance was still in Iron Blood, she had heard Iron Blood mention that he was from a northern city. Why would he appear in Deep Sea City? Gu Xingyin glanced at the stunning beauty across from him again, and he roughly knew what was going on. She didn't expect that Iron Blood would come all the way here for the enchanting woman. Gu Xingyin shook her head when she thought of the man with the enchanting woman pulling a suitcase. It was another bad debt that couldn't be settled. On the other hand, she didn't know what Iron Blood said, but the enchanting woman's face looked better. Iron Blood asked her to sit while he went to get the food. Gu Xingyin looked at the beautiful and enchanting woman who was playing with her phone with her head lowered. He looked away and continued eating. At that moment, "Brother, let me tell you, although this is a buffet, the food inside is very delicious, especially the steak." The doorbell rang, and a lively female voice came from outside the door. Gu Xingyin abruptly raised his head. She stared at the 2 figures that entered the door. No, to be precise, it was the tall man in black. Gu Xingyin was familiar with that face because she saw it every day in the game. So he was Qi Li? Gu Xingyin felt that the world was too small. She tried to find her lover in this world several times, but to no avail. She also guessed that he might be a character in the game, but she couldn't be sure. Qi Li seemed to sense something and looked in Gu Xingyin's direction. Their eyes met. 6 chapters today. I can't write 8 chapters. I'll write more when I have time. Good night, everyone. Chapter 1913. Qi Li's eyes widened for a moment. His first impression was that the woman sitting by the window not far away was very beautiful. But beauty alone was not enough to attract him. Qi Li had seen many beautiful women in his life, but none of them made him feel this way. This feeling was like standing in the cold wind of winter, and suddenly seeing the dark clouds break through the sun. He felt a sense of satisfaction from head to toe. It was as if an invisible void had been filled. The girl standing beside him did not hear her brother's response. She tilted her head in confusion, and followed his gaze to see Gu Xingyin. She instantly understood. Oh, a gentle and graceful woman is a good match for a gentleman. Who would have thought that a blockhead like her brother would be dazed by a beautiful woman? The little sister who cared about her brother said that she wanted to be a godly assistant. Hence, without another word, she pulled her elder brother to another seat by the window, which happened to be right next to Gu Xingyin's seat. Exceptional Enchanting's eyes widened in shock. It was a working day and not mealtime, so there were not many people in the shop. When Qi Li and his sister entered, Exceptional Enchanting raised her head out of habit. She recognized Qi Li at a glance. It would be strange if she did not recognize him. Qi Li's face was marked in the hearts of the players of Dragon Roar. Now that he had a face that was no different from the game, it would be hard for others not to recognize him. Who would have thought that he was even more handsome in real life than in the game? Exceptional Enchanting's heart skipped a beat. In terms of fame, Qi Li was much more famous than Iron Blood. Moreover, that damned woman Dark Fragrance Sleeves was in God Qi Li's team. If she could form a good relationship with Qi Li, her eyes flashed and a smile appeared on her face. At this moment, Iron Blood walked over with food. He had been on the other side and did not notice the two people who entered the shop. The enchanting beauty waved at him and turned to look at Qi. She said, "Look, isn't that Qi the great master?" Qi? Tai Shui frowned and looked in that direction. It really was him. Tai Shui's gaze shifted to Qili's body in an inquisitive manner. Well, the clothes on her body looked quite exquisite, but they weren't famous brands. It seemed that this Master Qili was not as wealthy as him in real life. This realization put Predator in a good mood. Men also liked to compete, especially in front of beautiful women. Predator Blood felt that he had been suppressed in the game. Perhaps he could regain some of his dignity in real life. He smiled and said, "The Federation is so big. It's fate that we can meet a player from the same server. Why don't we go and say hello?" This sentence was exactly what the enchanting beauty wanted. Thus Bun, who was waiting for gossip, and Qili, who was thinking about his abnormal reaction, saw a group of respectable men and women walking towards them. "I'm sorry to disturb you, but are you Qili?" Predator asked with a polite smile. Qili raised his eyebrows and glanced at him. He looks a little familiar, but I don't recognize him. Could it be someone who had seen him in the game before? He nodded coldly. "I am." Then there was nothing else. Predator, who had prepared a self-introduction and was waiting for the question. Chapter 1914. If the other party didn't follow the script, he couldn't continue. He stood there awkwardly, but Qili's mind wasn't on him at all. He was thinking about the girl at the next table. It was a strange feeling. Qili had never had such an impulse before. He wanted to know and understand a girl. She seemed to have a special attraction that made him want to get close to her. Qili thought seriously, is this the legendary love at first sight? Seeing Iron Blood being ignored like that, a trace of impatience flashed in Enchanting Beauty's eyes. This man was so useless. He didn't even know how to hit on her. It seemed that if she wanted to get close to the number one god, she would have to do it herself. Enchanting Beauty's thoughts turned and she naturally let go of Iron Blood's hand. She put on a smile and looked at Qili, who didn't even look up. She said, "Is it really God Qili? What a coincidence that we're on the same server. I'm Enchanting Beauty. Nice to meet you." Qili didn't plan on paying attention to her, but her name caught his attention. Enchanting Beauty. Wasn't she the one who had a conflict with Dark Fragrance? He had always admired Dark Fragrance full sleeves as an opponent, so he naturally paid more attention to her matters. Enchanting Beauty didn't think that there would be a man who didn't care about her title as the number one beauty in the server. He knew that she was a sworn enemy. Qili looked up at her and nodded. "Nice to meet you." The girl sitting across from him looked up curiously because of Enchanting Beauty's words. Unlike his big brother, the toe-picking hunk did not care about his feet. He was always interested in gossip. When he heard that, he quickly raised his head, wanting to see what the so-called number one beauty of the server looked like. After a glance, she lowered her head. Sure enough, in this day and age, with the 50% buff of the game, how could there be a real beauty? This was the first time Enchanting Beauty met a man who didn't take her seriously. She gritted her teeth, but she still smiled. "I think the world is so big. It's fate that we met. How about we share a table?" Qili said faintly, "No need. Dark Fragrance doesn't like you. If she knows that we're close to you, she won't be happy." Hidden Fragrance filling the sleeves. Exceptional Beauty clenched her teeth. She didn't forget to give Dark Fragrance sleeves a bad look. It's just a game. How can those grudges be brought into reality? Dark Fragrance sleeves likes to make a fuss about nothing. I actually don't care about those things at all. This meant that Hidden Fragrance was petty. Qili frowned, but he couldn't lose his temper at a woman. But he had a younger sister. The hobo man doesn't scratch his feet, put down his phone. He looked at Stunning Beauty and said seriously, "Although it's a game, a person's character won't change. People who could play dirty tricks in the game shouldn't be underestimated in real life." A stunning and enchanting beauty. Don't you think so? The beautiful woman's expression stiffened. She had never expected that the other party would not give her any face. She bit her lips, and in the end, she could only hatefully say, "Hidden Fragrance sleeves. That woman is incomparably arrogant. and her thoughts are heavy. You guys should be a bit more careful when you're in the same team as her. Chapter 1915. Gu Xingyin had just finished her last bite of steak. She slowly put down the knife and fork in her hand, then turned to look at the enchanting beauty standing at the side. Thank you for your concern, but it's not up to an outsider like you to tell me what kind of person I am, and how I get along with my teammates. Her clear and cold voice was like a quiet spring, clearly ringing in everyone's ears. Qi Li's expression froze. The meaning behind this sentence. He suddenly turned to look at Gu Xingyin. It wasn't just him. In this small corner, the other three people also looked at her. Gu Xingyin slowly stood up. Her eyes didn't fall on iron blood and stunning beauty at all. She walked straight to Qi Li and foot digging man not digging feet. She lowered her head slightly and revealed a smile. Nice to meet you. I'm Hidden Fragrance. This small space instantly quieted down. Even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. Stunning beauty recognized Gu Xingyin the moment she stood up. She was the woman she saw in the neighborhood that day. After all, with Qin Liqing's beauty, it was hard for people to forget her at first glance. But how could she be Hidden Fragrance? She couldn't be Hidden Fragrance. Qi Li was also stunned. He didn't expect that this girl would be a teammate who was very compatible with him. This was really inconceivable. This was clearly a very strange thing. But Qi Li didn't doubt Gu Xingyin's words at all. She was dark fragrance flowing sleeves, he believed so firmly. But his sister sitting next to him widened her eyes. Foot digging man not digging feet stood up and stared at Gu Xingyin in surprise. You're really Sister Hidden Fragrance? Her appearance was the same as in the game. She could be recognized at a glance. Gu Xingyin smiled. It's the real deal. Impossible. Stunning beauty's sharp voice rang out. Gu Xingyin frowned and turned her head in displeasure. Her clear eyes swept over the enchanting body of the peerless beauty, and suddenly, a meaningful smile appeared on her face. Impossible what? Do you think it's impossible for me to be Hidden Fragrance? What a coincidence. I couldn't tell that you were such an enchanting beauty. Gu Xingyin sized up peerless enchanting beauty from head to toe, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. After all, you are the #1 beauty in the entire server. She deliberately raised her voice when she said the last word. The sarcasm in her voice was self-evident. The toe-picking burly man did not scratch his feet and burst into laughter. The enchanting beauty was furious. You. Gu Xingyin replied unhurriedly. What about me? I'm a low-key person. I don't like to exaggerate my looks. I like to be a passerby in the game. Unlike some people who like to be in the limelight and beautify themselves to the point that even their own mother can't recognize them. Is there a problem? You. The stunning beauty's hands were trembling. She pointed at Gu Xingyin, and was so angry that she couldn't say anything for a long time. Gu Xingyin still wanted to provoke her. Didn't your family tell you not to point at others casually when you were young? It's very uncultured. The toe-picking burly man looked at stunning beauty's ashen face that couldn't be covered by her exquisite makeup. He was a bit worried that something bad would happen to her from being angered by Gu Xingyin. She couldn't help but look at her brother, only to find that he was currently staring at Gu Xingyin without blinking. Chapter 1916. From the perspective of the toe-digging big guy who wasn't scratching his feet, his brother's eyes that were looking at dark fragrance flowing sleeves were simply glowing. Even his lips couldn't help but curl into a smile. This time, the toe-digging big guy who wasn't scratching his feet didn't have the heart to care about stunning enchanting. His brother was clearly more important. Looking at him like this, the toe-digging big guy who wasn't scratching his feet could be confirmed with her experience after spending a long time in various forums. Her brother's attitude towards dark fragrance flowing sleeves was not normal. Heavens! Her big brother who was like a block of wood. Could it be that he was finally enlightened? Just as the brother and sister were thinking about their own matters, stunning enchanting held back for a long time and finally forced out her first plan. You slut. Unfortunately, Gu Xingyin who heard this didn't even bat an eyelid. She clicked her tongue, glanced at stunning enchanting, and slowly said, Girl, why bother saying such unpleasant words? It's simply vulgar. Don't ruin your good looks. Cough. Looking at his female companion's appearance, Ironblood, who had been standing on the side like an invisible person, felt that he should come out and make his presence known. He looked at Gu Xingyin with a somewhat complicated expression and said, I didn't think that you would be dark fragrance flowing sleeves. Gu Xingyin glanced at him and said, There are many things in this world that you can't think of. Ironblood. He could roughly understand Enchanting's mood. Dark fragrance flowing sleeves really didn't give any face when she spoke. He frowned and said, I know that there are some misunderstandings between you and Enchanting, but for everyone to be able to meet in real life is also a kind of fate. Why bother to be so aggressive? Gu Xingyin heard this and looked at him with a puzzled expression. May I ask where is Chairman Ironblood's position? Ironblood's heart moved when he heard this. Could it be that dark fragrance flowing sleeves had some thoughts about him? For a beauty of this level to be interested in him, it was a very honorable thing. Ironblood somewhat complacently said, I started my own business, and now it can be considered a small business. He thought that after he said this, the other party would look at him with a very appreciative gaze. But in fact, oh, Gu Xingyin replied faintly, then asked, I thought you were a patrol officer of the Pacific Ocean, President Predator. Tai Shue's face instantly turned ashen. She was indirectly scolding him for being a busybody. When stunning Enchanting Beauty finally finished preparing her second wave of words and was about to speak, Gu Xingyin took the initiative to strike first. She did not say much and only looked at Predator with a faint smile. Right, seeing that we were once in the same guild, I would like to advise guild leader Predator. Now that spring has come, everything is growing, everywhere is filled with greenery. President Ironblood, you'll have to pay close attention to this. After she finished speaking, she glanced meaningfully at the beautiful and enchanting woman standing beside him. Tai Shue's heart trembled. He understood the meaning behind Hidden Fragrance Sleeve's words. Was she warning him that there was a problem with her stunning beauty? Stunning Enchanting Beauty did not understand this and continued to speak. Don't try to act mysterious here, Hidden Fragrance Sleeve, you. Ironblood suddenly pulled her back and said to Gu Xingyin in a deep voice, People who walk different paths cannot make plans together. It's better to leave a way out as a person. Gu Xingyin directly turned around and pretended she did not hear anything. Ironblood pulled the unconvinced Stunning Enchanting Beauty out of the door without looking back. Gu Xingyin turned around and met two pairs of sparkling eyes. Toe-digging big guy not digging his feet looked at her with admiration. Big sister Hidden Fragrance, you're really too amazing. 4 gongs. See you tonight. Chapter 1917. Gu Xingyin smiled and said, Do you mind if I share a table with you? The toe-scratching burly man didn't scratch his feet and hurriedly sat down. So Gu Xingyin sat down facing Qi Li. Don't scratch feet looked at Gu Xingyin with his chin in his hand. You really are Sister Dark Fragrance. I always feel that it's so magical. In holographic online games, she had seen many people who didn't want to reveal their true faces. However, she had only seen one person who was willing to make themselves look so ugly. Who would have thought that the ordinary-looking dark fragrance in the game would actually look so good in real life? Gu Xingyin pretended to be angry and stared at her. You don't believe me? If you don't believe me, then give me back the 40,000 crystal coins. Hearing this, the burly man who was not scratching his feet burst out laughing. This time, I really believe that you are Sister Dark Fragrance. Don't scratch feet blinked and introduced herself. My surname is Qiao Yin Yan. Sister Dark Fragrance can call me Yin Yan. She pointed at her brother as she spoke, but before she could speak, Qi Li said it himself. My name is Qiao Fengluan, Feng from Kaifeng, Luan from Shanluan. Gu Xingyin nodded and also reported her name. Qin Liqing, Qin from Qin Shihuang, Lu from Happy, Qing from Sunny Sky. Qiao Fengluan repeated the name twice, and then glanced at Gu Xingyin. Her temperament was not very similar to her name. Gu Xingyin looked at the food in front of the two siblings. It seemed that they had just started eating. She also slowly ate the salad on her plate. The 3 people occasionally chatted, and the atmosphere was quite harmonious. Only Qiao Yinyan kept looking at her brother. If she didn't see wrong, Her brother's eyes had been glued to Sister Liqing's body, and he really didn't restrain himself at all. Gu Xingyin of course also noticed Qiao Fenghuan's burning gaze. She calmly watched the two siblings finish eating. Putting down the things in her hands, Gu Xingyin suddenly raised her head and looked at Qiao Fenghuan. She asked, "If I may ask, Mr. Qiao, do you have a lover now?" Qiao Fenghuan was stunned. He shook his head subconsciously. On the other hand, Qiao Yinyan's ears pricked up and her eyes instantly lit up. Something's wrong. After getting the expected answer, Gu Xingyin smiled and asked, "Since you don't have any, Mr. Qiao, can you consider me?" Qiao Yinyan was shocked by Gu Xingyin's straightforward words. My goddess is indeed handsome. Even his confession was so aggressive. Qiao Fenghuan's expression remained calm. However, no one knew that when he heard these words, his heart was beating like a drum. Even his brain was heating up. Qiao Fenghuan did not doubt that his ears, which were hidden under his hair, were burning hot. As for Gu Xingyin's words, under the gaze of the two women, Qiao Fenghuan slowly frowned. Gu Xingyin was puzzled for a moment. Is there a problem? Qiao Yinyan was also puzzled. Could it be that her brother doesn't have that kind of feeling for Sister Liqing? Then they heard Qiao Fenghuan speak. This kind of thing, it's better to let a man speak, right? Gu Xingyin's heart returned to its original place and raised a mischievous smile. Who told me to take a fancy to you and couldn't wait for a moment? Qiao Fenghuan. He inexplicably felt sullen as if his lines had been completely snatched away. Qiao Yinyan. His goddess was really aggressive. Chapter 1918. Qiao Fenghuan suddenly straightened his expression and stared intently at Gu Xingyin. I want to say this first. I'm a very serious person. I won't joke about matters of the heart. He was actually a bit nervous in his heart. Gu Xingyin's attitude was so natural that it was a little frivolous. He was afraid that Gu Xingyin was just joking and he would fall for it. Gu Xingyin looked at his expression and thought about his performance just now. He understood what was going on. She also had a serious expression as she looked at Qiao Fenghuan. All right, then I can also seriously tell you that I'm also a very serious person. Once I've set my mind on someone, it'll be for life. When he heard the words for life from her mouth, Qiao Fenghuan didn't know why, but his heart suddenly trembled. Gu Xingyin suddenly smiled. Whether you believe it or not, I've never had a boyfriend. You're the first man in my life that I've been moved by. She looked at Qiao Fenghuan. Perhaps in this world, there really is fate between the past and the present. When I saw you, I felt an extra sense of familiarity. Qiao Yinyan. She never thought that the seemingly fresh and refined Sister Liqing would be such an experienced driver when it came to words of love. However, she remembered that her brother didn't seem to like this kind of glib tongue the most. She looked at Qiao Fenghuan with some worry, thinking that if he got angry, she would have to persuade him not to embarrass a girl. Then when she saw Qiao Fenghuan clearly, she was going to be blinded by this smile. She, Qiao Yinyan, had lived for nearly 20 years. This was the first time she saw such a comfortable and carefree smile on her brother's face. Then her brother, who had always cherished his words like gold and had no emotional intelligence at all, continued Gu Xingyin's words. What a coincidence. When I first saw you, I also felt an extra sense of familiarity. The two looked at each other and smiled. Qiao Yinyan, who was completely ignored by the two beside her. It was probably unnecessary for her to stay here. She silently glanced at the two people who seemed to like each other. Qiao Yinyan tactfully picked up the plate and stood up. She was just hungry and wanted to get something. She wasn't tortured. Qiao Yinyan didn't want to go back there, so she had to wander around the food area with a plate in her hand, which made the boss feel strange. He came over and asked her if there was any problem. Qiao Yinyan said awkwardly, "It's nothing. I'm just struggling with what to eat." Boss. It took him half an hour to choose what to eat. Sure enough, it was difficult to choose. Qiao Yinyan sighed in her heart when she recalled the boss's pitying eyes when she left. In today's world, there weren't many younger sisters as sensible as her. She had to have a good chat with her brother tonight about next month's allowance. Yin Yan? Her brother's voice sounded. Xiao Yinyan hurriedly took a few things, put them on a plate, and walked over. The boss, who happened to turn around and see this scene. What kind of difficult disease was this? Xiao Fenghuan looked at his younger sister. I was wondering why you suddenly disappeared. Looking at the food on Xiao Yinyan's plate, he said earnestly, You're a girl, so you shouldn't eat such. His gaze fell on Xiao Yinyan's mountain-like plate. His meaning was obvious. Xiao Yinyan. Damn it, who am I doing this for? You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.